Do we have a full room in there, Sylvette?
We sure do.
I'm going to go on mute and let somebody else lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you don't mind.
Oh, one moment, we're waiting for Colin.
Come on, Colin.
Colin says we're good, Mr. Chair.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by our Vice Chair, John Hayes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Sylvette, would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Paul Anthony. Robert Brooks.
Here.
Frank Facciano.
Here.
Don Gottschall. Here. Justin Grimshaw. John Hayes.
Here.
Ron Heckman. Larry Hemberger. James Irwin.
Here.
Jeff Matskin. He is on virtually,
That's on his
yes.
iPad.
Glenn Reedman.
Present.
Mike Stershik.
Here.
Matt Turk.
Here.
Chris Worley.
Here.
Tara Zarinsky. Here. We have a quorum, sir.
Awesome. Wonderful. Do we have any public comment before us?
We do not today, sir.
Okay. We have minutes in Novus. If you had a chance to look at them, I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes of March 29th, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Frank. A second? And if there are any discussion about those minutes, let's have it now. Otherwise, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of March 29th, 2022, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Move on to our treasurer's report. Mr. Kwan, take us away.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, good to see everybody. Wow. This is full house. Nice. All right, walk through the treasurer's report. Always start off with the traffic. We're actually to the first quarter. And kind of putting our first quarter in perspective. We had a really good first quarter, best first quarter ever with Allegiant. Lagging a little bit behind with the legacy carriers. We had some discussions about that in our finance committee meeting. And the plan is, I guess the projections are that it will pick up probably into 2024. We're starting to see it kind of ramp up, but you can see the green ones there marked, where in 2019 was our best kind of legacy traffic from 2016, and the one in the green there for Allegiant at almost 85,000. Okay. If you look at, we always do our benchmarking. This is all U.S. airports. Down at the bottom, you can see there, throughput going through the checkpoint. All U.S. airports are up 5.7, and that's all U.S. traffic. That's a little misleading, but all U.S. traffic combined. AB down a little over 8%. All U.S. airports down in seats, but we're up in seats, so we have more capacity. Again, that's a good thing. Then we go into our benchmarks, which is kind of our peer airports. And you can see versus our peer groups. Our peer group is down almost 24%, and traffic going through the checkpoint down almost 19% in seats. So our numbers are a lot better than that. You can see kind of Wilkes-Barre down there at minus 40% on the throughput. Harrisburg down 20%. MDT, you see that they're kind of in the middle of that pile over there. For the month of March, we had a good month. Net income, $430,000. We collected no CARES, so that's all kind of without CARES money. Again, positive to budget, so we've had a really good quarter budget-wise. Again, if you remember, we always talk about that budget of integrity, that we started out with all those positions, 1-1, knowing full well that it's probably unlikely we will get it, but we're actually seeing an uptick in traffic, as far as the hires, our last pay period, which was last week, we actually had the highest FTEs we've had since March of 2020. Again, kind of the same thing for the first quarter, 1.9 year to date, over $1 million of that is CARES. Again, pretty good. Go down there, you can see overall expenses. A lot of that attributable to just the difference in the FTEs. We're 718,000 favorable, but again, good stuff. Again, we were kind of estimating starting the year out slower. Almost 248,000, but you can see that last year, when we had the CARES in there as well, as actually, if you take the CARES out of last year's first quarter, we were actually negative. Kind of seeing what makes up that variance, again, talking out with the salaries there and wages, and a lot of that is, and that's salaries, wages, and benefits kind of rolled up in there. That's really the biggest budget impact because of that. Budget of integrity, we've kind of got a nice little variance that at some point will narrow that gap. De-icing, ground handling on the de-icing, and then revenue on the aviation services, the fueling, so those kind of are our top three. And then you can see 5 and 6 kind of wipe each other out. 5's there mainly because you can't have 2 and 3 without number 5. Just kind of putting things in perspective is always good to kind of compare quarters. So you can see that 1.9 versus first quarter 21, 20, and 19 looks pretty good, but we had $1 million of CARES in there. So that was our number one kind of profit center. If you take that out, that was 61% of our overall profit. Last year, aviation services was 61%. But obviously a much smaller number, and then you can kind of see what's going on in the other quarters. Overall, we're doing fairly well for the first quarter. We got a nice start to the year, so it's some optimism as we go into the second, third, and fourth quarter. Then kind of comparing our operational income, a little different than net income because that's before kind of infrastructure, which is obviously a big number for us at the airport. The one in yellow is kind of where we are. And you can kind of compare that to other quarters and then to the rest of the year. So that one in yellow, we're at 2.2 and change for this quarter. You can see 2021 was probably the worst quarter we've ever had for the first quarter. But our best quarter during that time period was 2017. But still pretty good there. And you can see the average down there. And even at the bottom there, you see the average without that kind of awful year of 2021. Same thing for the rest of the year. That number up there for 2022 is just kind of what we have budgeted there. That's just kind of as a placeholder. But you can see that our best period from April to the end of the year was actually last year, and we talked about that before. We started out the year really bad, but the rest of the year worked out really well operationally wise. Then you kind of go all the way to the end. You can see April to kind of took it at it from a 12-month period from April 1st all the way to March 31st, that we had a really good kind of 12-month period. And that's kind of some optimism there because, you know, with our increased infrastructure with the connector and a lot of that stuff, we do need to increase our operational income. Again, keep it with a little bit of, you know, glass half full, half empty because we have a lot of those positions that we haven't filled yet. But again, overall good stuff. All these numbers are without CARES. They're kind of apples to apples. So you can look at what's going on there. And you can see there in the red for last year, you can see the impact of COVID. And usually that's in the red number where you really see the impact of COVID. Then we always talk about our cash on hand. That black line at the bottom is 60 days cash on hand. We want to stay above that line. When that includes contingencies and reserves, but we want to maintain, we at least have 60 days cash on hand. For some of the new members, there was a time when I first started here, we had 3 days cash on hand. So we don't want to go back to those days. It was pretty bad. But you can see down there that $59,000 is what it would cost per day to run the airport without any revenue. And any questions?
Any questions for Todd?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
I'd ask for a motion to accept the March 22 Treasurer's Report.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any additional discussion of the Treasurer's Report? Okay. Ask all in favor of accepting the report as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the report is accepted. Mr. Grimshaw is not here, correct?
Yes, he
Oh, there you are. Hey, here you.
Sneaked in.
We'll hand it off to you.
All right, thank you. We'll start with, so we didn't get to approve these at the business committee, but we did listen to them, and then we moved them to the full committee. So we'll start with Darren, talking about Spirit Wings Aviation with Braden Airport.
Thanks, Justin. So we've talked about this a little bit in the past. We've been working with Spirit Wings on coming up with an arrangement for them to kind of manage the day-to-day operations down at Braden for us. We've been had full-time staff on hand down there since last summer, basically, when we had to move some of that staff to Queen City just to remain fully staffed there with the challenges we're having with some of our staffing and some of the stuff Todd was just talking about filling those positions. So came up with an agreement with these folks to, like I said, manage those day-to-day operations down there. It's a 6-month agreement, pay them $8,000 a month management fee. Ultimately, compared to what we had budgeted for labor down there, that saves us about $35,000 over the year. So it's a little less than we had budgeted for the year in labor, paying that management fee. They'll do the general day-to-day services, aircraft movements, grass cutting, snow removal, field inspections, fuel quality control, and that type of thing. We'll still have, obviously, general oversight of the air park. We'll have our operations manager that will be working directly with these folks and be down there on on a regular basis to make sure things are going the way we want. So, Spirit Wings has been there for a while, since 2018 when they started their business there. They've got a great relationship with the tenants. So I think all the way around, this is just good for both parties. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Darren?
I don't have a question. I do have a comment before we move to a motion. So, I say this, just after the committee meetings the other day, I received a few phone calls from different people on the board here, and I just wanted to voice their concerns. Some of the concerns, and I have similar ones, are that this doesn't lead down us a path of outsourcing our work, right? Sure. We understand that, we're in a tough environment. We understand, we listen to Todd every month, we're having a hard time getting people, but this can't be a replacement for the airport having our own people, right? There's nothing like having your own people. So we understand the need. I think there's a need. I think we should go ahead and approve this today. I like the fact that it's on a 6-month basis. We can reevaluate. But I will tell you that, just moving forward, the board is going to keep a close eye that it doesn't to become a trickle-down effect here, and we start replacing with outside services.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that it probably doesn't make sense that, at least in the aviation services side, anywhere but here. It just, again, with what we have going on down there, sort of the amount of daily activity and everything, it just makes it incredibly hard to staff it and make it make sense for us, even if we could find the staff, which we still can't. That's the problem. So
Right.
it's just a sort of a
Outsource, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Outsourcing isn't inherently evil if you use it where it makes sense, and this seems to make sense for now.
Until they jack the price up later.
Right, and that's what we got to figure out. And that's why I like 6 months. Like I said, I agree with it. I just wanted to voice the concerns that I've received.
No, it makes sense.
What's the daily activity down there like? Like how many?
It's hard to say. I mean, there's days when there is virtually no activity down there, there just depends on the day, it really does, we don't have a necessarily good handle because there's no way for us unless we have someone down there to necessarily count movements all the time. Someone could show up and take their airplane out and go fly. We wouldn't necessarily know that. But, we see fuel sales and things like that. It's not a lot. I don't know how else to put it. It's just.
And in terms of the flight school, is that going to continue or?
The flight school has already closed.
Yeah, so that's gone.
It is at this point. I do think Spirit Wings has.
Do they have aspirations to create one?
I think
or?
potentially. They haven't come to us saying that they have a plan for it yet, but I know that he's basically voiced the thoughts of doing it in the past.
Because that impacts daily activity too.
Oh, certainly, yeah. It helps having the flight school there for sure.
So there's no flight school, and so I'm trying to figure out, it's just the people who have planes there right now that are.
Yeah, and folks in and out for maintenance, and you do get some transients that come in and out, but, it's pretty limited.
But just to Tara's point, it's really just a recreational airport.
100%.
Okay.
Then you go through seasonality, wintertime,
Very much.
GA traffic plummets, and then spring, summer, fall picks up again.
Even just daily seasonality, like they're not seasonality, but the daily activity is crazy how much it varies just from day to day, and things.
Oh, yeah.
Justin, I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of outsourcing either for the reasons that you cited. Jim made a very good point in terms of pricing. If this were a long-term agreement, I really wonder. 6 months gives us the ability, let's get through. Hopefully, the job market continues to improve. We've seen somewhat improvement since the beginning of the year. Hopefully, that continues. We can get it staffed. We can get it back to where it is.
Agreed, and we've seen it a little bit better here and there too, it's just we're not quite there yet, so
Yep.
maybe, like you said, maybe 6 months buys us enough time.
Just as a point of order, probably, like, we should have held questions for Darren and then had discussion after a motion to approve the contract. So if we were to continue discussion, I'd ask for a motion to approve that contract.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Thanks, thank you. And is there any additional discussion?
So I just want to ask a question about the agreement with Forks, if that's moving over, and if that's going to increase. Is there any point in time in the future where we think that there is going to be increased activity at the airport with that agreement that's going on?
Well, certainly, the agreement limits our ability to do much in terms of business expansion, but that's something we continue to have dialogue. Sorry, I'm trying to find a line of sight here with you. There you are, Tara. But
So there's no resolution on that yet?
currently, no. But we are working with the solicitor's office on some ideas there, and so we'll continue to have dialogue with Forks.
Right, and that just seems to be an ongoing thing, and as their board of supervisors continuously overturns, and you get new supervisors, and I realize you have to renegotiate things, and it's a lot of fun. I got it.
Right.
But that also impacts that whole daily flow of any activity there, so it's.
Sure, yeah, the ability to construct more hangars, to do more things at the air park, bring in more tenants, bring in more revenue, I think is, again, the long-term plan. But we have to work through that in phases.
And I think that Northampton County wants to see that Braden Air Park succeed.
Right.
Because it's in our county, and it's somewhat troubling to see that it's sort of like waning in its daily activity, and that there's a transition going on, and I'm going to be watching it too.
Certainly, and I think, the board's made a commitment to stand behind that air park. We've made a commitment as a staff to look at some improvements at the air park. We're in the process of putting in a new terminal. We're continue to apply for grant funds to improve facilities based on the agreement that's in place and what limitations we have. But I think, there's still a lot of good investment happening. Certainly COVID really hurt us a little bit, and I think hurt GA traffic in general. But I think this is a way to provide service to the tenants that are there and make sure we're providing the same level of service.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
What's the occupancy at Braden for the spaces we have?
Say there's about 28 tenants right now, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Out of, is that 90% full? Is it
No, that's probably
50%?
out of the facilities we have, maybe a little better than 50%. Somewhere in that neighborhood.
And when's the terminal coming online?
This summer.
This summer, and then so in 6 months, we review this contract we just approved. If we renew it, do they have a person in the terminal?
They will have a person in the terminal.
Right.
That's part of the deal, part of the contract. They will have someone there to.
That's the staffing the terminal minimum. If you look at the summary of the agreement, the staffing the terminal a minimum of 5 days a week and staffing the air park on the weekend.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Okay, if there's no additional discussion, I'd ask for a vote to approve the agreement with Spirit Wings. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Thank you.
We'll enter into that 6-month contract and review in the future. Go ahead, Justin.
All right, so I'll turn it over to Ryan. He's gonna talk about EMAS bed repair, and he'll start with telling us what EMAS is.
So, the project that we're looking to get approval on, we had in our 2022 CIP budget. So the EMAS bed is an engineered materials arresting system that was mandated by the FAA back in 2015 for runway safety area compliance. So really what it is there's these blocks that are like a crushable concrete. So if an aircraft has an overrun, it hits them and basically slows it down without damaging the aircraft or obviously putting any lives in jeopardy when it's slowing down. So really what we're looking to do here, get the approval on, is every 5 years you have to look at the maintenance of the, they call the seam seal tape between the blocks that keeps all the water and dirt and debris out. So if you get water in there with that concrete type material, it gets porous and actually loses its integrity to stop the aircraft if it has an overrun. So the company itself, Runway Safe Inc., they're actually the only company certified by the FAA. FAA has a letter that says these are the only people that maintain, design, and inspect these beds. And really what we're looking to do is the seam seal tape has a lot of cracks and splits in it, which obviously allows the water to infiltrate. So what we're looking for is the approval on the seam seal replacement, which they don't use the tape anymore. They use more of what you see with like concrete joints to keep the water out. But we're also looking to do that strength test inspection to make sure that the bed still maintains the integrity that it was designed for back in 2015. So as I mentioned, it was on our 2022 CIP budget for $400,000. So with the latest pricing, it's $444,234. And again, I mentioned worked with the solicitor in terms of the information we had from the FAA with that amount, which we talked a little bit about in the committee regarding the standards that the FAA has set and that company meeting all those standards. So we're looking, once we sign the proposal, there's about 8 weeks from the scheduled repair, and then we'll coordinate obviously with operations and doing the work as needed on the runway end. So we're looking for approval to enter an agreement with Runway Safe Incorporated at the amount of $444,234 for the, forgot to mention, this is just for the runway 31 departure end, which is the physical runway 13 side. Next year, we're going to program to do the other end, which is the one that's closer to the 22 inch.
Is this the company?
Questions for Ryan?
Is this the company that installed it originally?
Yes.
Great. Can I have a motion to approve?
Move.
Second.
Second. Did I hear a second?
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Matt, Bob Friedberg,
Yes, sir.
before you take the vote, we evaluated the contract from the standpoint that it's a sole source contract. The FAA, as Ryan said, indicates that the only provider of this service is Runway. So as a result of that, we ruled that there was no need for competitive bidding, for advertising for competitive bidding, because no one else could do this job. So there's no competitive bidding for this contract.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion to be had related to the motion? There's not. It asks for a vote to approve then. All in favor of approving this bed repair, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Great. There you have it. Thank you very much, everybody, for the action items. On that part of the agenda, we'll move on to, thank you, Justin, for chairing that committee. Moving on to our director's report. Mr. Stout, take us away.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. As Todd mentioned, March traffic very strong. Just taking a look at March 22 versus March of 19, we were only 4% below our March 2019 numbers, about 3,000 less passengers. So really good to see getting back to those 2019 levels. Looking at national passenger traffic in April, so TSA was really seeing for April, they were about 9% down in relation to what numbers were nationally in April of 19. In comparison, we were only down about 4% for April. So again, still holding that 4% down off the 19 numbers. Looking ahead at seats, and we've, taking a look at Todd's graphs, we see our seats continue to be strong and seeing that those are still in the marketplace here, and that's encouraging. Taking a look at May, our scheduled seats should be up about 7.6% based on the published schedules today, and those continue to change. But right now, still a positive trend. Nationally, seats are actually down in May about 8%. So we continue to kind of watch what's happening there. Cargo is still doing well, up 3.6% this month, so continued growth there. FedEx had a very strong month, up about 60% over last March, so doing very well. Since our last board meeting on March 29th, April 4th through the 8th was National Library Week. And so we had the Allentown Public Library, Bethlehem Area Public Library, and Easton Area Public Library here. They're also part of our book exchange, and so they were here helping out with story time for some of our younger passengers. So it was a lot of fun to have them in that week. April 13th, we unveiled the Sunflower Lanyard Program, and that's a lanyard that passengers, as they're traveling through the facility, can pick up at our information desk on the lower level. That lanyard is a quiet indication that that individual has a hidden disability, and it informs our staff that they may need some additional assistance. And so it's a nice way, I think, in a lot of the programs we have here to make sure we're attentive to all of our passengers. So.
Is that something that extends to other airports? Is that a
Yes.
regional or national?
It is. It's actually a global event. So it's something that started off in Ireland, of all places, and so there's a number of airports in the U.S. that are also doing it. So. Let's see, April 18th through the 22nd, Volunteer Appreciation Week. So we were recognizing our COPE program with our canines, our navigators and junior navigator programs and their members. So that was a lot of fun to thank all of the volunteer staff that we have here, Sherman and others that decide to help us out. So we appreciate, I know. So we appreciate all the help. Let's see, also April 18th, the TSA is no longer enforcing the mask requirement at airports, so we continue to follow that. Justice Department is obviously submitted for an appeal there, but at this point in time, that's still lifted, so we'll continue to keep the board advised. April 21st was our kickoff for Museum on the Move. It's a program we're working with the Historic Bethlehem Museums and Sites group on that. So they'll have monthly visits that we're working on scheduling going forward, where they'll bring articles and artifacts from the museum here to the airport for travelers, again, to take a look at some of the great things we have going on in our museums. And then April 22nd, in honor of Earth Day, we did a lot of cleanup around the facility. Always great after winter to do a little cleanup, some flower planting. We always pick up foreign objects out on the airfield as well, so we did that at all three airports. So that was a lot of fun. And then let's see, upcoming events. May 2nd, which is right around the corner here, is our 10-year anniversary for Allegiant's Myrtle Beach service. So we're excited to see that continuing to do well. May 13th, we're participating in the second annual STEAM, S-T-E-A-M-M, Expo at Springhouse Middle School. That's Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, Mathematics, and Medicine. So, this whole expo there.
Just keep putting letters on there.
What's not in there?
Wow.
So we'll be part of that, and happy to help the Allentown School District for that. May 19th, the airport and TSA will be hosting a press conference, and that's really going to be regarding summer travel tips. As we know, really encouraging people to arrive early, and again, just making sure you have plenty of time to process through the checkpoints. So just again, a reminder for summer travel, if you haven't booked yours, please do it now. Let's see, and
Get in line now?
you don't have to get in line yet, so we'll keep you posted, Frank. And then let's see, June 6th through the 10th, just to put on your calendar if you're interested, TSA is having another pre-check event here with their mobile RV. So we'll send out some more information on that. Registration on that isn't open yet, but we did want to let you know if you were interested in getting pre-checked.
Sorry, when
And then
is that?
it's June 6th through the 10th, and it'll be in the RV out here. And I did want to just quickly share with you just a time-lapse video. It's about 40 seconds, and it just is able to walk through the steel that was being put up for our terminal connector. And I guess I'm blocking Sylvette's view here, so let me back away. And again, just 60 days worth of putting this up, so it's pretty exciting to see. Of course, it doesn't capture the 10 months of all the underground work that we had going on to get to this place, but pretty incredible to see this come together.
With it going that quick, it makes you wonder why construction's so expensive, you know?
All the decking going on, some of the sides, getting ready for the paneling, so there it is.
Now, that's up until when?
That's up until last week, end of
This week?
Friday.
So, yeah, I can see more done.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So with that video, that concludes my report. Mr. Chair, happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Tom? Fire away. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate the report. We'll turn over to Judge Friedberg for our solicitor's report.
At this point, I assume everybody has filed their financial disclosure forms. If not, May 1 is the deadline, and so that will be coming for you if you haven't filed it. So I think everybody has gotten it in at this point. This month, we worked on the Injury Prevention Consultant Program, referred to as ATLAS. There were some questions about an employee consent form and waiver of liability form and authorization to release assessment information. And we made recommendations. All the recommendations were agreed to by the provider, and so I think that matter is moving forward. The other matters that we worked on were essentially, other than the runway safe contract, which I discussed already, rather routine performance bond review, right to know request review. There was some work done on the Sprint T-Mobile lease and a lease for agricultural land, and airport display ad template was worked on as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I do not believe there's any new business, but if there is, please say so. And I do not believe there's a need for an executive session today. Is that correct, Tom?
That is correct.
Excellent. Okay, this is our annual reorganization meeting, and that means that it is time for us to elect officers. The nominating committee presented a slate of officers at our March meeting. And Larry, would you mind just running that slate down for everybody's to refresh everybody's memory?
Before we get into it, I just had a personal note. I recently got sick, and the guys, Frank and Mike, they jumped in and got things going, and we didn't miss a beat, so I'm very thankful for that. Thanks. I'm getting there, not where I want to be, but I'm getting there. On a sidebar, as I did solicit these people through the organization, I can't tell you how rewarding it was. Some people came up and volunteered, others were drafted, and the one guy claimed I broke his arm, but I assured him it was only a sprain. So thanks, everybody, and with that, Mike, if you'd present the slate of officers, we'd appreciate it.
I'll be happy to. And the way we do this is that we vote on each office individually, and then at the end, when we have the county representatives, they're voted on by the members of the board from that county. So that's the way this will operate. So I'll go through the slate overall first, and then we'll go back and do it office by office. So for chair, we have John Hayes, vice chair Glenn Reedman, secretary treasurer Justin Grimshaw, Northampton County representative Tara Zrinsky, and Lehigh County representative Mike Sturchin. So
thanks, Mike. And Judge, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can vote on that entire slate, or we can take nominations from the floor for any position?
We have to vote on each office individually. The reason being that if you vote on the entire slate, there may be somebody who's in favor of some people on the slate and not on others. So I don't expect that will happen, but it's required that each office be individually voted on.
Okay.
Also, there is the opportunity for anyone to make a nomination from the floor for any additional candidate that they wish to have voted on.
Correct. Okay, Mike, go ahead and take us away then.
So first, I'll put the name of John Hayes forward as the nominee for chair. Are there any other nominees for that position? Don't all jump at once. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Do I need to abstain since it's me?
I don't think so.
You can
You
vote.
can vote for yourself.
I don't think you're going to sway this election.
I might vote no, I don't know.
Even if you voted no, it'd be a lose. Okay, so we're good on the chair. For vice chair, I put the name of Glenn Reedman in nomination. Are there any additional nominees? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. I'll put the name of Justin Grimshaw forward as secretary treasurer nominee. Any further nominees?
We sure?
Don't go twisting
Were you
your
the one that
arm.
was great?
I talked to Mike.
Seeing no further nominees, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now, these must be voted on by the county, the members from the county in which you were nominated. So for Northampton County Representative Tara Zirinsky, any further nominees? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And for Lehigh County Representative Mike Stershik, any further nominees? Run him out of town. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're good. Thank you, Matt.
Congratulations to everybody. Mr. Hayes, you can adjourn us.
So moved.
Or is it my job to adjourn?
Nope, Dawn moved.
Done, it was moved.
I'm not sure if he was handing it off to the new chair.
Oh, look at that. Little ceremony.
What should I do?
I'm no longer, I think in mid-meeting, I don't know what the.
He's right, Matt's
the
out.
order is on that.
Well, that's
but
right.
You're the chair,
mid-meeting, I
so-
can transfer the meeting to the hands of our new chair, John Hayes.
Okay, thank you, Matt. 2 seconds briefly. I am very, very fortunate to follow in some great footsteps. We've got people like Mike Dowd, Chuck Diacon, I think Eddie Lozano served for a year, if I remember correctly, Mayor Turk, Tony Iannelli, Mark Troutman. They're the ones that I can remember off the top of my head. And we've got a great board here. It has been, it is a pleasure serving with each and every one of you, and I look forward to continuing to do so. So thank you. Thank everyone as well for Larry breaking arms to get people to step up. Appreciate that, Larry. And we've got a great team. So I look forward to continued great work by this board, by the management team, by the entire team here at the airport. So thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Mike, is Matt still on the board? Or is
I'm
he
still on
out?
the board.
Yeah.
I'm just no
Okay.
longer the chair.
Yeah, Matt was reappointed by Lehigh County in
Excellent.
December. Yeah, so we're good. Okay, do we have any other business to discuss today? Hearing none.